Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, your home for Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube in a couple of places. Our main feed is at Tip of the Ice-Burgh, where you'll get full episodes, you'll get clips throughout the week, and you might get a little bit extra starting in a week or two as we continue to add to our content plan here at the Tip of the Ice-Burgh. You can also find full episodes on my personal channel at Nick Belsky, or if you prefer an audio version, you can find Tip of the Ice-Burgh absolutely anywhere you get your podcasts from. My name is Nick Belsky, riding solo on today's episode of Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Nick Horwat will be back next week, but he's busy today, working some Steelers tailgate down at Stage AE. So if you were down there, hopefully you were able to catch up with him, see him, and say yo. If not, well, he'll be back on the show next week. There's only one way that I can start off this episode, and that is by reiterating a fact that I have said for a long time now. Shootouts in the NHL are awful. It is a horrible way to end a hockey game. I went as far as to call it an abomination on Saturday night because it is nowhere near indicative as to who the better team was on that given night. To me, Saturday is a perfect example. You watch the first 65 minutes of hockey between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. High-paced, solid physicality, goaltenders who, while not being perfect, they did give up a couple goals where you scratched your head a little bit. Goaltenders who had stepped up in the big moments and made the timely save on both ends of the ice. Artur Shilovs did it for the Penguins. Elvis Merzlikins did it for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And yet it all whittles down to who can miss the net first. That's what decided the second point in the standings on Saturday night. Who can just not hit what is turned into essentially in that game, who cannot hit the layup? Who's going to make the error first? And I just don't like that as a way to decide a hockey game that was so entertaining through 65 minutes. Now, what's the solution? I personally would vote for another 5-minute session of 3-on-3, but I understand from the player standpoint, it's already hard enough to play 60 minutes of NHL hockey. It is tiring. It is taxing. Adding 5 minutes in the first place of wide open ice, 3v3 for 5 minutes, that is taxing as well. So they're gassed by the time we get through that 65-minute marker. But man, I hate the way that things are decided now. It's not as bad as saying, hey, it's a tie, but it's not that much better in my eyes. But I digress. I won't stand on my soapbox for the shootout for very long on this episode because I know we have way more to get to. At the end of the day, the Penguins are still 6-2-1 on the season, which is far beyond what I think anybody had expected. And it's not just that they're 6-2-1. They're 6-2-1, and they're playing some really good hockey. I mean, look at Saturday night as an example. How often in recent seasons have they been down and out the way that they were in the third period against Columbus, and they were able to just claw back? They were able to bring the team back, to bring the audience back to life the way they did against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Down 4-2, under 10 minutes to go. They really hadn't had anything going offensively for over 30, 40 minutes of time on ice, because since the first period, they did really nothing offensively in the second. The first 10 minutes of the third, they really didn't do anything. So the fact that they were able to kind of put their foot in the ground, fight back, at least earn that one standings point, you have to walk away from Saturday saying, okay, it's not a win, and that will never change, but hey, they got the standings point, and they showed you something, especially in the early stages here of the 2025 season. Now, something else that happened on Saturday and was a through line from Thursday night's game to Saturday night's game, injuries for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and never something that you want to discuss. They've already been bit by the injury bug this season. Brian Rust missed the first couple of games of the season dealing with an injury. Kevin Hayes has been out since the first day of training camp. He's on the mend, but again, still a long period of time that Kevin Hayes has been out, and still no substantive updates on Rickard Rakell. He's been skating, but again, the injury bug has already been in Pittsburgh this season. Now, it flares up again. Caleb Jones goes down in Thursday night's game against the Florida Panthers with a lower body injury. It's announced that he is going to be out approximately 8 weeks due to that injury, and I feel bad for him. We'll get to him in a second. And then last night, I'm recording this on Sunday. So Saturday, Rickard Rakell exits the game in the third period due to an upper body injury. He blocked a shot, looked like with his hand, maybe his wrist. Let's start with Caleb Jones, because what I think this does, potentially, is open the door for even more Penguins prospects to get an opportunity at the NHL level here over the next couple of weeks. We've already seen Harrison Brunick. We've already seen Ben Kindle. We've already seen Philip Hollander, who is a prospect, he's 25 years old. We talked about this, or I talked about this with Nick Horwat off camera last week. He's older than Phil Tomasino, which feels wrong, but it is right. Check the birth certificates. But I do think that these injuries, one already being deemed substantial, and Caleb Jones, who's out 8 weeks, and one hopefully not being serious. But if something happens, there's, I think, 2 ways that we could go with it. Let's start with Caleb Jones. What does the injury to Caleb Jones the next 8 weeks look like because of his absence? Well, on Saturday, we saw Connor Clifton and Matt Dumba. I'd have to imagine the reason that Harrison Brunick has sat back-to-back games is because they want to make sure that he is ready to go for his first opportunity at back-to-back NHL games on back-to-back nights on Monday and Tuesday. As the Penguins take on St. Louis, if you're listening to this when the day it comes out, that's later tonight, and they take on the Philadelphia Flyers in the second half on the road on Tuesday. I'd imagine that's what we end up seeing. Who he ends up skating with, that remains to be seen. We've seen Matt Dumba on the left. We've seen Connor Clifton on the left. I think it comes down to really who they have more faith in putting next to Harrison Brunick on Monday night. But with the injury, there was no other move made, at least as of this moment. The Penguins sit at 22 players on their active roster. Now, the question that I have is, do they end up wanting to bring up a defenseman to fill the hole of the defenseman that went down? Or do they say the forwards at Wilkes-Barre are absolutely cooking? And you know what? While our forwards have been good, something we'll talk about in a little bit, and I'll give credit where credit is due to somebody that I don't think enough people are talking about, do we add another forward to that? Do we give another opportunity, considering that has been the theme of the first 10% of this season? I think that we see a call-up coming on Monday, even if it is midway through Monday for a player that's not going to play on Monday night. I think the Penguins, before going on this week-long road trip, 4-game road trip, I think they're going to want to have an 8th defenseman on the roster. Because as of right now, with Caleb Jones going down, you're down to 7 defensemen, but really, and don't take this the wrong way, because I am by no means calling Harrison Brunick half of a defenseman, but you're really at 6.5 because Harrison Brunick is on a pitch count. Is he going to play all 4 of those games on the road trip? And if not, do you really want to go with 6 defensemen and a guy that you're putting on a pitch count? No, I do think that they're going to want at least somebody along those lines with them on the road trip. So to me, it's one of Graves or Alex Alexiev. I don't think there's going to be enough playing time opened up by this injury to garner calling up Owen Pickering. He's had a decent start to the season down at the AHL. Shoot, everybody down there has had, at the very least, a decent start. Probably a good start could be classified for everybody down there. But I don't think there would be enough ice time for Owen Pickering to come up. While I would love to see that pairing of Pickering and Brunick, we saw it a lot during training camp, I don't think this opens the door for that. I think that you're just looking to bring in, if you call up anyone, I think you're looking to bring in an insurance policy in case something else happens on the road trip. And I think that comes by way of Ryan Graves or Alex Alexiev. And if you bring those guys up and they're just up for the road trip, they don't play any games, you can send them back down without putting them through waivers. So I think that's what ends up happening in the wake of the Caleb Jones injury, who I feel really bad for. I put this out on X yesterday. I know a lot of people were, let's just say, unimpressed with his performance through the early portion of this season. But I thought if you broke it down from the first couple of games where he was still trying to get his feet wet, playing with an 19-year-old and Harrison Brunick in a new system, and you kind of look at that for what it was, And then you look at the last couple of games in the week before his injury, he really started to understand it. He really started to have it click for him, and he started to play some really good hockey. So I feel really bad that he wasn't able to capitalize on that momentum and prove to everybody how comfortable he is and how much better he can be once he gets that comfort. So I'm just hoping for the best for Caleb Jones, hoping for a speedy and wholesale recovery, and would like to see him get another opportunity as this season goes on. Then there's Rickard Rakell, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because my hope is that it's not serious, that he blocked a shot, there was a little bit of inflammation, and then it dies down between today when I'm recording this and tomorrow when they take on the Blues. So I'm really hoping it's not serious because he has had an underrated start to the season. In the wise words of Penguins general manager Kyle Dubas, you can hope in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. Well, my hoping from earlier, it didn't pan out, as 2 hours after I hit stop on the recording of the initial recording of this podcast, I should say, news breaks that Rickard Rakell, who left Saturday night's game with a, quote, upper body injury. We all knew he blocked a shot with his left hand or wrist or fingers, something to that like was going to be the injury. And the news comes out this morning that unfortunately Rickard Rakell has undergone wrist surgery and will be out approximately 6 to 8 weeks. That coming from Penguins PR on Twitter. It's really unfortunate news for a player who, while not a lot of people were talking about him, was off to a really good start to this season. I mean, the Penguins are 6-2-1 as of this recording, and Rickard Rakell was a big reason as to why they were there. And I understand the headlines were the mutant line, as Colby Armstrong likes to call them, Evgeny Malkin, Anthony Mantha, and Justin Brazeau in their start. Again, rightfully so. Sidney Crosby's having a great start to his season. The kids are dominating headlines. Dan Muse in his first season as Penguins head coach. The goaltending has garnered a lot of attention, but Rickard Rakell, a lot of people just kind of looking at it and saying, oh, ho hum, 8 points in his first 9 games and looking like he was well on his way to a second consecutive career season in the black and gold. Unfortunately, that's going to be put on hold. His year has been put on hold, out 6 to 8 weeks due to an injury. A tough spot for Rakell, a tough spot for the Penguins, who now have the task of trying to replace Sidney Crosby's most productive winger throughout this season to this point. Now, in order to do that, they did call up a kid who's been doing really well. We'll talk more about Ville Koivunen later in this episode, but he is the one that ends up getting the call back to the Penguins. And when he got sent down about 10 days ago now, we all said he's not going to be in the minors very long. Well, the first chance they get to call somebody up from the minors, it does end up being Ville Koivunen. And like I said, we'll talk about how he's performed at the AHL level a little bit later in this episode, something that was already recorded. But he comes up and he practiced today on the Penguins' third line alongside Ben Kindle and Tommy Novak. So he comes up and he doesn't go right back where he started, because he started with Sidney Crosby, and it didn't really work out all that well in the first 2 games of the season. Hence the reason that he was sent down in the first place. But now that there's a spot for him in the lineup, he steps back onto the roster and steps back into a rotation that has been pretty constant throughout the first 10% of the season, which is that third line rotation. Philip Hollander moves up to the top line, something that I think is very deserved because he has been very good for the Penguins. A player that really kind of has everything you want in a Sidney Crosby winger. He's responsible in his own zone, so a 200-foot presence. He is somebody that has the smarts to play the game, knows how to find open space, knows where to go with the puck before it's even on his skate blade. And he's somebody that does have that upper echelon of talent. He went out and he scored over a point per game or near a point per game. Can't really remember off the top of my head last year overseas in Europe. He tore up that league. And that's part of the reason why they brought him back to North America. So excited to see what Philip Hollander does with his opportunity. It's going to be tough to make up for the loss of Rickard Rakell, somebody who this year was producing at an elite level once again, but somebody who was also taking on some penalty killing time early in this season. So we'll see what the Penguins are able to do. But that is unfortunately the news that I have to interject into this podcast that came out After recording, Rickard Rakell out 6 to 8 weeks. Ville Koivunen back with the big club, but practicing with the third line, and Philip Hollander will be looking to get an extended look next to Sidney Crosby. Now, back to the episode. I can't believe that we are 15 or some odd minutes into this, and I still haven't mentioned the Penguins Hall of Fame. The Penguins reopened their Hall of Fame with a new physical presence at PPG Paints Arena on Saturday as part of their Hall of Fame weekend, welcoming Kevin Stevens, Ron Francis, Eddie Johnston, and Scotty Bowman to the 2025 class of the Penguins Hall of Fame. It was a great moment for those four, a solid weekend, as they always do for the Penguins. They're always great at honoring their history, at honoring their legends, and this was no different. Watching those four be celebrated this weekend is something that just reminds you how good the Penguins are at this, how good the Penguins are at bringing history back and honoring that on the ice, off the ice, everything included. So it was a great weekend, all in all. But it got me thinking. That and something we saw last week got me thinking. Is Kris Letang a lock? Not for the Penguins Hall of Fame. That's pretty obvious. He might even get his jersey retired in Pittsburgh. That's a conversation that we could have a different day. But is Kris Letang a lock for the Hockey Hall of Fame? My initial reaction is, yeah, why would this be a conversation? But then I think about it, and I look at a player like Sergei, who, by all means, was not somebody who at the end of his career I would have said, yeah, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. But he's been eligible since 2018. And he is still not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I would have thought by now that we would have seen Gaunch in the hallowed halls up in Toronto. Over 1,300 games as an NHL defenseman, over 800 points. He was a top defenseman, like the top defenseman on the 2009 Pittsburgh Penguins team that went on to win the Stanley Cup, not to mention the team that went all the way to the finals the year before. Add on that he's a two-time All-Star. That resume, you would think, would make him a lock to be a Hall of Famer. And yet here we are. It's been since 2018. We're in 2025. And he's not there. And let's not forget the fact that the NHL Hall of Fame voting committee, the Hockey Hall of Fame voting committee, has had some misses in the past. I mean, Alex McGilleney's going in this year. He should have been in 20 years ago. So there are players that for one reason or another slip through the cracks. Or there are a long list of players that don't get their just due from the Hockey Hall of Fame. So I do think that it is a valid question. Is Kris Letang a lock to make the Hockey Hall of Fame? And here's the thing with Letang. Last week, and I said there were two things that made me think of this. The Pens Hall of Fame on Saturday and something that happened last week. Well, last week, as many of you know, Kris Letang notched his 600th career assist. He becomes the 20th defenseman to do so, the fourth active defenseman to do so. But when you look at everybody else on that list, take out the four that are currently playing, you look at the remaining 16 players that have scored 600 assists from the defensive position. 15 of those 16 are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Sorry to Gary Suter. He's the only one that's currently not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. That's a dubious distinction for one Gary Suter. But you look at Letang, and you'd have to imagine he joins the ranks of those other 15. You'd have to imagine that the other three active defensemen, Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns. Why is the last one escaping me right now? I don't know, but whoever it is, definitely a Hockey Hall of Famer. Not sure why I can't think of it off the top of my head. Put egg on my face. But I'd have to imagine that Kris Letang, that matched with the fact that he's a three-time, no matter what Hockey Reference says, and I don't understand why they have him as a two-time Stanley Cup champion. I understand he was injured in 2017, but he was still a very important piece to that team throughout the regular season. And let's just put it this way. If your name is on the cup 3 times, you are a 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Full stop, end of story. So the fact that he's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, he was the top defenseman in the 2016 run. He would have been the top defenseman on the 2017 run, leading that blue line to victory. And the fact that in 2016, he scored the cup clinching goal in San Jose. He scored the game-winning goal in the cup clinching game. All of that matched with the fact that he's played for as long as he has with one organization, which does carry weight. I don't think there is any doubt in my mind, after thinking it through, there is no doubt that he, to me, is a lock for the Hockey Hall of Fame. The only reason that I had to do this thought experiment and make my decision on this week is because I feel horrible for Sergei Gonchar. And I thought, man, if they do that to Letang too, they shouldn't. He is a lock in my opinion. So he may not be first ballot, but I think that he will make the Hall of Fame. I don't, there might be a little doubt in my mind, just a little, but not enough for me to say it's not a lock. Like 99.99% is where I'm at this point. After thinking it through, after looking at all the numbers, after thinking about his career and what it has meant, the guy should be in the Hall of Fame. Let me know in the comment section whether or not you agree with that standpoint. I would imagine most of you will. Let's talk a little bit about something I teased earlier about how good the Penguins have been offensively this season, because it's come from really every angle, right? There was the game the other night where they had goals from all four lines. I believe that was Tuesday night's game. They've had contributions from Connor Dewar pretty consistently. Their defensemen are finally starting to pot goals, with Ryan Shea and Kris Letang lighting the lamp on Saturday. Crosby and Malkin are near the top of the league at this point at 38 and 39 years old, respectively. They've found their sea legs, as it were, in their elder years, certainly. But the offense as a whole has just been really, really good. The team as a whole has been really, really good through the first couple of weeks of this season. And a lot of the talk and a lot of the credit for that has been given to Dan Muse. Rightfully so, right? He has come in and he is the head guy. He is the top of the card. He is the head of the table for the Penguins in the coaching staff and in that surface level of the team. But you have to give credit where credit is due. And on the offensive side, with the Penguins, as of this recording, sitting third in the NHL in goals scored and second on the power play, a lot of the credit needs to be given to Todd Nelson. I know some of you are saying, yeah, of course. Some of you are saying, sorry, who is that? And that's fair. Assistant coaches in the NHL, they don't get a whole lot of shine. It's really the head coaches and the superstars and the general managers. Those are the players and the people that end up getting a lot of the credit or end up getting a lot of the blame. But you look at assistant coach Todd Nelson and you look at that hire. Man, was that a home run. And, this is just, a theme of this episode of me telling you what made me think of this and what made me want to talk about this. But credit goes to Haley Hunter of Sportsnet Pittsburgh. They've started to do assistant coach interviews during the game. And she, right after a power play goal, went up to Todd Nelson, interviewed him, and asked him a couple questions. And you know what? Sitting there, watching that interview, thinking about the way the Penguins have played throughout this season, you look at it and you say, man, the Penguins are lucky to have Todd Nelson on their staff. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, NHL head coach material. Probably get there sooner rather than later. And honestly, at this pace, he might get there next year. He might put himself firmly in the front of the line for NHL head coaching jobs and any vacancies that come up next offseason if he continues to do what he's doing with Pittsburgh. This is a guy who had a resume before, back-to-back Calder Cup champion in 2023 and 2024 with the Hershey Bears. Not to mention he also won it back in 2017 with a different organization in Grand Rapids. This guy is a bona fide, in all capital letters, head coach prospect in the National Hockey League. And the Penguins are fortunate to have him to coach their forwards and to be the coach of the power play. Now you look at their staff. Whenever it was announced, a lot of people said, oh, Nick Bonino is back. How exciting is that? He's getting to kick off his post-playing career immediately with an NHL job as an assistant coach. And that penalty kill has had its ups and downs, but hey, It's great to have Bones back, and I think you've seen from everybody on the team that they are excited to have him here and they understand how good he can be at this. But Todd Nelson, he came in polished, he came in ready, he came in with a winner's resume and kind of flew under the radar. I don't think that's going to last very long. The longer the likes of Justin Brazeau, the longer a young player like Ben Kindle continue to come in and surpass expectations that were laid upon them at the beginning of the season, the more credit is going to go to Todd Nelson, and the more the spotlight is going to shine a little bit brighter on him. He's done a fantastic job in the early going. Couldn't ask for a better start for an assistant coach to his tenure with the organization. And I just wanted to give him a little bit of credit where credit is due, because I know a lot of us are talking about Dan Muse, and he has been very good. I know a lot of us are talking about Kyle Dubas and the moves he's made to set this team up. And it is for a reason. I think he's due it as well. But man, I just wanted to give a little bit of shine to Todd Nelson and shout out to Haley Hunter of Sportsnet Pittsburgh, because she's the one that put the spotlight on him first. And now I'm hoping to continue to grow that spotlight on somebody who's been a very integral piece to the Penguins' hot start in the 2025 season. Let's close things up with a prospect wrap-up, because the Penguins, well, they are nothing if not an exciting team to watch outside of the NHL level. We talked a couple weeks ago about who we're most excited to see. Will Horkoff has been really good in Michigan. Cruz Lucius has been really good at Arizona State. Michael Ilyin is doing really good things over in the KHL, but I mean, maybe the most entertaining thing, maybe the best performances are happening in the same state that the Penguins are currently playing NHL hockey in. And that's up northeast. That's Wilkes-Barre. They are not just winning. They are not just off to a good start. They are absolutely dominating the American Hockey League. Wilkes-Barre advanced to 7-0-0 after a 3-2 overtime win on Saturday. I already mentioned that. Ville Koivunen scoring the overtime winner against the Charlotte Checkers. You look at that and you say, man, what a team. How much fun has it been to watch the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins? And you'd be 100% right. But it is not just that, hey, there's a couple of guys that are doing some really good things and the team is coming together, because they do have a lot of players that are making contributions. Avery Hayes has been really good this season. Tristan Brose has been really good this season. But there are three individuals that are absolutely lighting the world on fire in the minor leagues. First is Danton Heinen, leading the AHL in scoring with 12 points in his first 7 games. You don't think that he has some incentive to get back up to the NHL after being placed and clearing waivers to start the season? Oh, 100%. He's looking at that third line rotation saying, man, I should be in that. And let me prove to you that I should be in that rotation with how I perform here in the AHL. That's phenomenal. And then, talking about proving people wrong, Ville Koivunen, he did get off to a slow start. Those first couple of games, not his best performance on the top line with Sidney Crosby. Ended up getting demoted in favor of Philip Hollander, playing on the third line, and that game came to an end. When that game came to an end, Brian Rust came back from injury, and he was the only player that found himself not needing to go through waivers or go back to their junior team. So he was the odd man out. They sent him down, and he could have handled it one of two ways. He could have been upset. He could have been angry at himself or others and let it affect his play, or he could have done exactly what he's doing, which is take it as a challenge, say, hey, I tore up this league last year. I'm going to tear up this league again this year until you give me another opportunity. 11 points in 6 games played for Ville Koivunen. Notched the game winner on Saturday, and he is absolutely killing it in the AHL. And then, of course, there is the guy down there. And I meant to look up all of his stats. He is 5-0 on the season. He is the netminder for the Penguins. He could be the future of the Penguins as their number 1 goaltender. 5-0-0 on the season. 1.4 goals against average in 5 games. Has a shutout on his resume and a 949 save percentage. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Sergei Murashov. Man, it is going to be hard for the Penguins brass to continue to say, Yeah, I think it's best for his development to keep dominating the AHL, because right now that could be the case, but how much longer is it going to be? I mean, you look at Artur Shilovs and you look at Tristan Jarry and their, one-on, one-off situation that they have at the NHL level, and they've been playing well. They've been playing really well. They each have a shutout. Penguins are, the last I checked, the only team to have multiple shutouts this season to this point. But one bad week, 1 week where it's like, maybe we should stop this rotation. Maybe you should sit for a minute, might open the door. Because it's not like, hey, well, we have a guy in the AHL that's playing pretty good. We have a guy in the AHL that is a stone wall. He is stopping every single puck for the most part that's coming his way. And he is right now unbeatable at the American Hockey League level. He has a great team in front of him, but as of right now, the Penguins also have one of the better teams in the NHL, at least the way that they're playing at the moment. So while I do really like Artur Shilovs, I do like what I've seen from Tristan Jarry, man, this kid is knocking on the door, and honestly, he might have already opened the door and might be peeking through. So the question that I have is, how patient will Kyle Dubas and company be? How long can they wait? I understand. Sergei Murashov is 21 years old. There is no rush to get him to the NHL level. But how long can you sit there and watch him continue to just night in and night out be the best player on the ice, maybe the best player in that league, and not want to see what he looks like at the NHL level? All I'm saying is one bad week from either of these guys, and it could be a one-on-one off with Murashov and Shilovs. It could be a one-on-one off with Jarry and Murashov, because the Penguins have salary cap space, and they've already shown with Danton Heinen, they've already shown with Ryan Graves that, listen, if there's somebody that's going to do your job better than you, we don't mind paying a little bit of a salary cap tax to have you playing in the AHL. We don't mind putting players on waivers. Shoot, Tristan Jarry was placed on waivers last year. Now, we're a little far off from that happening right now because he's been playing well, but one slip up could open the door for an opportunity for Sergei Murashov the way that he's been playing. He has been, like I said, just unbeatable at the American Hockey League level. And I understand it's been everybody down there. They're 7-0-0 for a reason. You don't get to 7-0-0 because one goaltender is red hot. You get there because the entire team is playing really good hockey, but he especially has been a highlight and a headline for that team all season long. And I mean, credit to Kyle Dubas. He has a tough task in front of him, because I think the more Murashov does this, the more people in Southwest Pennsylvania are going to be clamoring to see him make his NHL debut. Now, there's one last thing that I want to talk about a little bit here, and it's not a great situation that the Penguins find themselves in, but it's one that garners the need to be talked about. Taylor Haas of DK Pittsburgh Sports reported last week that Emil Pieniniemi is no longer in North America, that he has been suspended by the Penguins organization for failing to report to Wheeling of the ECHL. Pieniniemi was at the NHL training camp. He was then sent down to Wilkes-Barre, and then after that, he was sent down to the ECHL's Wheeling Nailers, not being able to make the AHL team out of camp in what is going to be, or what is supposed to be, his first full season in professional hockey in North America. It was reported also by Haas that instead of going to Wheeling, Pieniniemi has now returned back to his homeland of Finland over what is being reported as a little bit of friction between he and the Penguins organization about his development plan. This is not unique as far as players and organizations not being able to agree. This is the similar situation to what we saw with Rutger McGroarty and the Winnipeg Jets. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to end the same way. It doesn't mean that it's going to put the Penguins into a corner and force them to trade this player. But what it does mean is there's going to be a little bit of a delay in his development right now, because he's in Finland. He's not in North America, and he's, as far as we know, not currently playing professional hockey. Personally, and again, my own personal opinion, I don't get this from the standpoint of the player. You look at the American Hockey League level, it's not like they're putting AHL lifers and giving them opportunities ahead of you on the left side. It's Ryan Graves, who is on an NHL contract and is going to need to be playing hockey games. It's Alex Alexiev, who is also somebody who the Penguins are looking at as a rotational piece, somebody who, in a pinch, they could call up and utilize at the NHL level this year. And it's Owen Pickering, who is a former first-round pick, who also is likely to get NHL opportunities. All three of these guys could play in the big league this year. They're going to get ice time at the American Hockey League. Then you look at Scooter Bricky, who plays both sides and is an AHL talent and who's a little bit older. Yeah, you could go up there and get into that rotation and get in every third game. Or you could play every day as a number one defenseman, the top of the power play, and in a league that this organization has been open about under Kyle Dubas, saying it is going to be an important part of development for the Penguins. The ECHL is going to be utilized, is going to be given resources because the Penguins value that team and value that part of the development path. The Penguins, historically, have already pulled from the ECHL. You look at a guy like Casey DeSmith, who has made a nice little career for himself as a backup goaltender, made a lot of money, played a lot of NHL games, and he started in Wheeling. There's a lot of other examples of this, specifically in the Penguins organization. I don't understand again, I'm not the player. And he might have his own reasoning that I'm not privy to, and I can't say that I can speak for anybody. But in my opinion, you look at this and you just say, man, they still care about you. They think this is what's best for you. And I guess Pieniniemi he doesn't agree. I mean, he is a very, very talented player. He is a player that we talked about over the summer, somebody who was a dark horse to maybe make his NHL debut this year. And I think even if he starts in ECHL Wheeling, there's still that chance that he climbs the ladder, and by the end of the season, he could have made his NHL debut. It might have only been a cup of coffee. Shoot, it might have only been his debut, and that's it. But this is a kid who is extremely talented, great with the puck on his stick. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, put up a point per game. I think it was 60 points in 60 games last year in the CHL. He is somebody who was uniquely qualified to start playing professional hockey this year because he had already done it. He'd played professionally in Finland, and then he played the North American style last year when he came over to play in the CHL. And now he just has to mesh it together with playing professional hockey in North America for the Penguins organization. So I'm hoping that they can find a solution that makes both happy. I'm hoping that this doesn't end up being another Rutger McGroarty situation where he just doesn't agree and it doesn't seem like there's a path to an answer. I do think that Kyle Dubas and the Penguins organization value the ECHL, and I think that that could be something that brings Emil Pieniniemi back to North America and back to the Penguins organization. And I'm hoping that it happens quickly because this is a kid that I'm super excited about. And I think he does have a future as an NHL defenseman. I don't begrudge the player. Do what you think is best for you, but I don't understand the decision-making behind it. But we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. The Penguins are valuing that team. Like, who do we just talk about? Sergei Murashov. Sergei Murashov played the majority of last year with the Wheeling Nailers. And now, under a calendar year later, he is somebody that is dominating the AHL and is probably the best goaltender in that league. There's a path from the ECHL to the NHL in the Penguins organization. If Pieniniemi doesn't believe it, okay. You got to do what's best for you. I understand that. Again, I don't begrudge the player. I just personally don't agree with it. And I know that doesn't make a difference to him. I know it doesn't make a difference to the Penguins organization, but that's just where I'm at with the situation. Hoping for the best for both the team and the player. I'm hoping that they can find a solution that makes both happy. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Tip of the Ice-Burgh. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this one. Remember, you can find us on YouTube, full episodes at Nick Belsky on YouTube, as well as Tip of the Ice-Burgh. But if you follow on Tip of the Ice-Burgh, you get clips and you might get a little extra content here in the next couple of weeks as we continue to try to build out our content plan for the 2025-26 season. If you prefer an audio version, you can find us absolutely anywhere you get your podcast from. Make sure that you leave a review, leave a rating. We hope that we're worthy of 5 stars. If we're worthy of 4, we're worthy of 4. If we're worthy of less, just, keep it to yourself. That's all I'll say. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Tip of the Iceberg. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.